Alright, so our basic typography is in place. This will give us a foundation to build off of as we arrange content through hierarchy. Our content needs some serious corrections to its measure and space, but we'll deal with that as we go because each section will be handled differently. The first section we want to look at is our header. This is the area of HTML that's under the header tag, so we're looking at how to style out the words CSS Zen Garden and the beauty of CSS design. From our sketch, I've concepted this section to include some big type for a title with a subtitle beneath it at a smaller size. I want the background to span all around this section to the edges of the browser, so when you hit the page, you're not engaging a lot of different things at once, you're only soaking this in. Alright, so this is where we left off on our current web page, and I'm going to want to start styling out our header through our CSS. First, I want all our headings to have a font color of green. So I head down here and add this in and change this to color. We'll save and check that out. All right, it's a little intense in places, so we're going to change that around, but it's starting to look good. And down in our header, we're going to now give it some space by adding some padding of 10em and 4%, and then give it a text align of center. Let's check that out. Great, so now our text has ample space above and around it, and you can engage it as its own element on the page. Now I want to start styling out our H1. So I want it to be a lot bigger and bolder. To start, I'll give it a font size of 6.2em and a font weight of 900. Let's see what that looks like. All right, it is definitely big and bold. I'm not a fan of the green color for it here, so I'm actually going to change it back to our text color. So I'll grab that and paste it into our H1. And I also felt like the margin on the bottom could just be flat, so let's give it 0. And check that out now. Great, so this is much nicer, and I like the spacing a lot better where our H2 is snug up underneath our H1 there. So I want my H2 here, which is our tagline, to be a bit different than what it is right now. I think it would look really nice if it was the sans version of Allegria and all caps with some letter spacing and so forth. So let's style that out. Over here, I'm going to grab our font family and paste it into our H2. And I don't need the small caps version, so I'm going to remove that. And then I felt like the font size was a little big, so we'll set it at our next size down in our scale, which is 1.777em. And let's also set the letter spacing to be 0.3em just to give it some breathing room. And lastly, let's set our text transform to be uppercase. Let's see how that looks. So that's looking good, but I feel like it could just use a font style of normal instead of italic. Now let's check it out. Great. So we're almost there, but notice how the small caps in this uppercase setting don't really jive well. So let's go in and fix that by targeting the header ABBRs to have a text transform of uppercase. Great, so that fixed that issue there. Now let's jump into our summary section. From our sketch, I've concepted it out to be its own little area, centered so it feels tied to our header. But we can distinguish it through changes in background color, the size of the type, and the font style. So I'm going to head back into our CSS, and I'm going to first copy these two colors as I want our summary background to be green and our color to be white. So we'll set that up. We also want it to have a text align of center. And this class is going to need some space around it, so let's give it some padding of 1.5 for the top and bottom and 6% for the left and right. Let's check that out. All right, it's getting there. Obviously, our link color will need to change a bit, and I actually want to increase this font size to accent that summary more. Let's head over to our CSS, and I'm targeting our summary P element, and let's increase it to the next size in our typographic scale, which is 1.333em from typescale.com, and let's check that out. That's much better, but notice here we need to adjust our measure as we don't want this to span the whole width of the browser and it just feels a little clumsy. So to fix that, I'm going to set a max width of 44 rem and give it a margin of 0 auto so that content block is now in the middle of the page. Alright, that's getting there, but our line height here feels a little too spacious. So I'm going to set that at 1.4 instead of the 1.6 that it was at. And let's give this a font style of italic so that it feels a little different from our text. Alright, so that's looking a whole lot better, but I still feel like we could do something to the last line of this paragraph, and we definitely need to change the link colors there. So let's head over to our CSS, and we're going to target that paragraph by doing summary P+P because it's the second paragraph in our summary class. So I'm going to add some code real quick to style it out and explain what it does. So what this code is doing is it's removing any text indent that we had put on it so it'll correctly align to the center. We're going to give it a font size of normal because it pairs well with the italic going on there. And then I'm going to decrease the font size so this paragraph is less accented. Then we'll set the top margin to 0.2em, which will give it even spacing. And lastly, I've set its color to be dark green. Let's save and check it out. Alright, I really like how this calls out this portion of the summary to be really important and then the second portion to be a little less important. But we still need to fix these links here. I think they would look good as small caps with a bottom border with the same color as the text at first, but when they're hovered over, they'll change to our sandy white. Let's go set that up. So I'll save and refresh the page. This is looking really nice. These links are able to be noticed through their bottom border and hover state change. Our header as a whole has really come together and taken shape, and it immerses the reader immediately in the content and colors. We'll get into responsively adjusting all these later because we first want to set up our body copy responsively. Changes to our body copy's font size will affect all our headings, so it's smart to do that first and then adjust from there as needed at the different breakpoint sizes. Next, we'll get into building out our 1-column and 2-column layouts.